And before we get started, I'm going to do a quick introduction of the team to you. Most of you know us and the team as a whole. Um, but for those of you who may not know, we'll just do a quick introduction. And I think we still have people coming in, but they'll just come in and join us as they come in. I am Joyce Patterson. I am the team leader for the 21st Century Grant. And the team members are, and I'm going to ask, I think most of the team members are already there, have the cameras on. But if not, please put your cameras on as I call your name and just say hello to the project directors here. We have Amy Bosch,
Hey guys.
Jamal Perry,
Good morning, everybody.
Shonda Pooser. Shonda, we didn't hear you.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone.
All right. And then we do have one other team member, Latasha Ransom, who is out of the office today. But we are your 21st Century team. Let's do a couple of housekeeping tips. Please keep your lines muted so that we can cut down on the distractions in the background. Thank you so much. And we also ask that if you have any questions that you put them in the chat box. Let's see, a few notes. For the project directors who attended the training for the new project directors a few weeks back, you should have been sent a copy of the recording just a few days ago. We had a few little kinks, but we got them worked out. And if you did not receive your recording, just let your program manager know in an email, and then we'll have it sent to you. Also note that today's presentation is being recorded. And by way of updates, let's talk about monitoring. Monitoring face-to-face versus virtual or desktop. Well, because COVID is still happening, for the foreseeable future, we plan to restrict our monitoring visits virtually or to the desktop, and at least through the end of this year. And then next year, we'll kind of reevaluate to see, if COVID is no longer a big threat like it is now. And if so, then if not, then we'll reevaluate and determine if we will be able to come into your schools. And we do know that a lot of the districts right now might have a protocol in place where they will allow outside visitors to come in. But right now, we as a team have decided that we will restrict everything to virtual, primarily because we want to feel safe too coming into your schools. Let's see, another note. Make sure I don't want to miss anything here. By now, you should have also received an email sent to you from your program manager about the anti-bullying summit that's going to be taking place on October 13th. And there's a link provided for the after-school programs to register to attend. So I hope that you and your students can attend. I think it's going to be a really fun time for the students. And let your program manager know if you did not receive that email, and we'll be happy to make sure we get that to you. Let's see, what else? Hopefully by now you've also received your attachments that were sent yesterday, kind of leading up to this project directors meeting today, and it included your project director's handbook, the calendar, and the monitoring schedule. And again, if you didn't receive these, don't worry about it. Just shoot your program manager an email, and we'll be happy to forward those attachments to you. Let's see, I think we talked about just make sure you mute your phones, your lines. And I think that's all I have right now. Team, if I've forgotten anything, just remind me. I want to make sure that I've kind of given you the updates.
Cameras to save bandwidth.
Say that again.
Cameras to save bandwidth.
Yes. If you could, just go ahead and turn your cameras off as well so that we can save our bandwidth. So we're asking you to mute your lines and to just turn your cameras off. And I'll be kind of back and forth throughout the presentation today. So for now, I'm going to turn over the reins to Amy, and she'll go over the 5 focus areas with you. And again, if you have questions, feel free to just put them in the chat box and we'll answer them as best we can. If not today, then we'll make sure we get an answer to you as soon as possible. Amy?
Okay, good morning, everyone. Up on your screen right now, you can probably see the agenda. So I just wanted to make sure everybody kind of knows the order that we're going to review everything. We're going to start with, Joyce just reviewed a couple of the updates, and then I'm going to cover the 5 focus areas. And Jamal is going to go into some enrichment monitoring information. Shonda's going to talk about some financial pitfalls. We're going to have Melissa stop by from auditing to review some information, as well as some resources for Character Ed. We're going to take a little break. We're going to have a couple of presentations. And then we're going to hear from AIR, and then we'll have some questions and answers at the end of the meeting. But like Joyce said, feel free to put anything in the chat box, and we're going to monitor that throughout the meeting. So, all right. So now we're going to go ahead and talk about the 5 focus areas. And Shonda and I, we are experiencing with a poll. So we're going to start with that. Shonda, do you mind trying to share that poll survey? You guys bear with us. This is our first time doing this. So y'all are our guinea pigs.
Yay.
Hey, so yep, we can see it. I can see it. I hope everyone else can see it. So if you would just take a couple of minutes and answer the question. And what we're wanting to know here, what is the difference between enrollment versus your attendance? When we go out to programs, we see a lot of confusion with these two. So we just want to go ahead and start the meeting talking about the difference and helping our programs be very clear about what the expectations are. So if you'll go ahead.
I apologize, but I don't see the poll. I just see the 5 focus areas on the screen.
Okay, let's see. Thank you.
I can see the poll. Anyone else having problems seeing the poll?
I can see it. It's in the chat.
Oh, you can see it through the chat.
I can see
the chat.
Okay, are you able to answer it in the chat? And once again, thank you guys for helping us work through this.
Yes, this is our first time even trying this, so.
You should actually be able to click on the answer. I'm gonna try.
It says to see this poll, go back to your meeting or the polls app. So you can answer it in the chat, but I'm not sure that you can answer it using that app.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and just answer in the chat if you don't mind. And if someone has answered what you're going to say, you can just like that comment, and that'll let us know that that's where. We'll just do it that way for right now. And like I said, thank you guys for being our guinea pig. Yay.
So are some of you able to answer it on the poll itself and some are not? Because I'm seeing 17 responses.
I'm having my chat box won't even load. Like it's just circling around and round. So I can't even see the chat box to answer the poll.
Okay. So I think at this point, it's probably if you're not able to see the poll, I'm just assuming, guys, that it's probably that you don't have the app or you don't have it loaded on your computer.
Please mute yourselves.
So we'll just continue to use the chat box for majority of people.
Yeah, we have 18 responses, so.
So Joyce, you can see that. Awesome.
Yes. We'll just go with what we have and give them the answer, and then we'll just keep the presentation flowing.
Okay, so basically the first thing we want to make sure you guys know is the difference between enrollment and attendance. So we go out to programs a lot and they're like, we have 75 students enrolled, and they think that they're meeting their numbers based on their enrollment. But no, your numbers need to be met based on your attendance. Attendance is who actually comes to your program. So this is very important. And we can talk about all the different ways to promote your program. You guys know that. To have ongoing recruitment procedures in place, but it's very important that you stay very in tune with your attendance requirements. So another thing that I'm seeing and hearing a lot when I'm talking to my programs is the 85% rule. So a lot of people feel like just if they have 85% of their programs that they're good with attendance. You're really not. We've been told that when we go out to programs, if you're not at 100% of attendance, you're not compliant. So the 85% rule is just what protects your funding. So I always try to stress to my programs, you really need, if you said you're going to serve 100, you really need 100. So if you need to over enroll and have 110 on your roster, that's fine. Now, when you get into the 85%, that's when, if you're serving less than 85%, that's when we may go back and look at your funding and let your funding reflect your service number. So we know COVID has added a huge dilemma to all this. Just work with your grants manager individually on that. We're understanding, we know between staffing issues, space issues, transportation issues, we get it. We've heard it all. We're here with you. We're working through this. But just be in constant communication with your grants manager about your attendance. There's a lot of programs that don't even know their project number. So go back to your original grant application and make sure you know that number and make sure you're working towards that number because your funding is based on that number. So we don't want to mess with your money. We want to keep everything as is in the GAN, but you have to have the numbers to support the level of funding that you're receiving. Okay, so moving on to the second focus area is your academic impact. So, you know, you have to have your ELA and math component. That's a part of the 21st century requirements. But we also want to encourage you, if your grant application was written to support STEM efforts or any other academic scope, to make sure you're having that in your program. A very good rule of thumb is 50% of your day needs to be academically enriched. This is where you're also going to really want to watch your ratios. This is where we look for your ratios. Another tip is when we come to see you, whether it be virtual or face-to-face, make sure that we're coming on an academic day. We do know and we do think it's acceptable for one day of your week, especially on those Fridays, to be your enrichment heavy day. I have a lot of questions come across my desk about if the homework component can count towards your academic hours. Absolutely, but you do not want your program to be a homework center. There's a difference, so you do need an academic component. Shonda and I, we did a poll in regard to your academics, so let's go ahead and try to see if we can see that now. And the question is, how do you track your academic impact? And the choices are your MAP scores, parent satisfaction, report cards and progress, and standardized tests. There is no wrong answer to this. This could be different. This is simply a survey. You could do it multiple ways. You could have and for those who are not tracking, these are some suggestions of how other programs are tracking. It looks like majority of people are using the report cards and the progress reports. As well as MAP. Okay. The third focus area, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the save time, is your social and behavior impact. This is where the resource of the character ed components is very valuable. You want to really form relationships with your students to help in this area. And also, we do track your discipline referrals. So it's very important that your students are coded in PowerSchool. That's how we do that. And there is a date, I think it's October the 7th, that is the deadline to have your students in PowerSchool. And then it's also important that throughout the year, when you add or drop students, that's reflected in PowerSchool as well. So when I was a project director, what I would do is once a month, I would go in to PowerSchool and make sure that everything was current. And your PowerSchool person at the school can really help you with this. They can run reports for you. They can run your report of saying everyone that's coded in PowerSchool. That way you can double check. So it's very important that you have that relationship with your PowerSchool operator if you do not have PowerSchool rights. And as a project director for 15 years, I did not. So, and I was fine with that. So I had a very good relationship with my PowerSchool operator. And once a month, we would actually do lunch together in her office, and we would just go through and make sure that that was all current, because it's very important for reporting purposes on our end. Okay, family literacy. Let's go to another poll question. We're going to get good at this through practice. Okay, during COVID, what are some of the ways your program was able to meet the requirement of the family literacy component? Because I have a feeling that we're going to be following a lot of these again this year. And these are just a couple of ways that we heard a lot in our office that we thought were great, and we just wanted to share them with you guys. And if you were not able to fulfill your family literacy commitments last year, or if you're a new program this year, this is some suggestions to help you fulfill that. It's also very important that your family literacy events are entered into AIR, and along with that, they're going to want the parents' information. I think it's just name to go with that. So you need to make sure you have a sign in, whether it be if you do a drive through, they sign something, you know, when they pick up their packet, or if you mail out the packets, you document which families you have mailed the packets out to. And then lastly, if you do a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting, you can always record their attendance through that. So we just want to stress to you guys the importance of family literacy, let you know that we're here to help you work through any barriers you may have with COVID or limitations of people coming into the school, and just make sure that you guys are fulfilling this commitment. So just because of the circumstances with COVID, we are still going to require this commitment because there are ways to deliver the information without being face-to-face. So it looks like majority of people last year did do the virtual component. So, and we encourage you to maybe mix it up, you know, one month or one quarter, however you do them. We request that you have 4 family literacy events a year. You know, of course, you can have more, but maybe each quarter do it a different method, because some methods might work for some families and not the other.
Is someone willing to share what they did virtually, an example of what they did virtually, so that others can kind of get an idea of what they can do in this environment?
Yeah, if so, just go ahead and unmute yourselves and then just tell the group.
We didn't have one virtual. Well, we had a few virtual actually, but the one that was most.
Our infusion room's open. We can get you back into one of those chairs if you're more there, or if you want some privacy.
Whoever is speaking, we can't hear you. I'm sorry. Okay. I was able to hear one person, but not the other.
I know I stopped talking because I heard someone else talking in the background.
Yes, go
Um,
on. Thank you.
I was just saying that one that was very successful for us that I think we're going to repeat is we had a minute to win it drive-through for our students, and our parents came and we had different stations around our car loop area. So they had a minute to win it where we were sharing literacy tips, playing literacy games, and at the end they got a chance to get out, take a selfie with our backdrop, and leave with the book bag of supplies and things such as that. And that was very successful. So I think we're going to do that again. They really enjoyed themselves.
That sounds super fun.
That
What
sounds
did,
wonderful.
forgive me for not knowing off the top of my head, but what school are you from, if you don't mind sharing, or what district?
Polo Road Elementary in Richland School District 2.
Fantastic. Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing.
And Amy, in the chat, we see Miss Lewis from Hemingway MB Lee Middle School. They held a free conference call and presented some strategies for reading at home. Sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. And then I also had a program that did a book club for the parents. They actually mailed out a book to each family member, and then they had a Zoom call to discuss the book like 4 weeks later. So I thought that was interesting. It was like a parenting component built into that. So anyway, very good. So if you guys throughout the year, if you have any questions or need help or just kind of stuck with your family literacy component, just reach out to your grant manager, and we'll share some things that are going on at other programs to help you get on the way. All right, and the last focus area that we like to talk about and that we measure your success on is your sustainability efforts. So we're going to have a peer talk in a little while from Sumter in regard to your community partnerships and the importance of those and your community buy-in. And then this is the part of the presentation that I like to remind project directors of the importance of the advisory board. That's probably the area that I see with the most weakness when I go out to programs. And your advisory board is very important. And we base your what's the word I'm looking for? We base your success on whether or not you're having an advisory board meeting. There, a lot of people are doing the Zoom, and that's fine. But we do want to stress to you the importance of making sure you have all the right people on your advisory board. Remember, you need to have a student as well as your partner and a parent. And of course, you want to also invite your school administration. So,
And all of those are listed in your RFP,
mhm.
and they're included, I believe, in your handbook. All of the components that you should have for your advisory board.
And we do know that it's a little bit difficult at the elementary level to have a student. So I do recommend that you have like an older student, whether it be a 4th or 5th grader. And another tip that I'll always tell my programs is maybe whatever student you have that parent on there. That way they can come together for to be comfortable with the environment. And we do see schools that piggyback on school improvement council meetings, and that is fine as long as all your people are on the school improvement council and you are a line item on the agenda for the school improvement council. It's going to be very important that you keep agendas, meetings, and sign-ins for your advisory boards. Okay. Are there any questions in regard to the advisory boards?
And one thing I want to add, this is Joyce, they should at least meet quarterly. Maybe not monthly, however often, but we expect them to meet at least quarterly during the school year.
Yes. Majority of my programs meet. They do the family literacy monthly and they do the advisory board quarterly. So, but that is something that we're going to be looking for. And like I said, when we're looking for that, we're going to be looking for agendas and supporting documentation to support that. Okay. So now I think I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jamal. And he's going to go ahead and talk about after school enrichment.
We can't hear you, Jamal.
Okay, I'm back. Just trying to make sure I got control of the screen here. All right. Again, good morning, everybody. I'm Jamal Perry. I'm going to talk to you about enrichments and uh, that are important to your program, because if you don't have enrichments, uh, you want to make sure you have enough enrichments, varied enrichments that attract the students, that are helping keep the students engaged and wanting to come to your program. Because you'll know your program is successful. One of our colleagues used to say the students will vote with their feet. If you see your attendance going down, you might want to see what's going on, talk to your students, talk to your parents, and see why, what's going on with the attendance. Trying to move the it's
Slide, it's
Amy, can
slide
you?
not
Yeah,
moving.
it's not moving for me.
Either with your arrow button or your enter button.
Nope.
Okay, give me a second. I'll take back control.
Okay.
Okay, Jamal.
Okay. Thank you, Amy.
No problem.
Your program, just depending on your approved application, the programs can look different across the state. It just depends on what's in your application. It just what you can provide. If you see that something is not being attended or not working, by all means, reach out to your grant manager and say, "Hey, I need to make a change. I need to stop one enrichment and add another one based on the attendance that I'm low attendance that I'm seeing, or I polled my students, I polled my parents, and these are some of the enrichments that they said they want to have." So you just need to reach out to your grant manager and submit a program modification if you need to change or add an enrichment that is currently not written into your grant application. And as you can see, we're not going to read them all on the screen. Varied application enrichments such as character education, community. You can have your students do community service, drug and prevention programs. It just depends on what you, as a program director, your administration, your advisory board have identified, along with your parents and students, are enrichments that'll be worthwhile and keep your students engaged. Next slide. All right, field trips. We know these are going to be kind of difficult, maybe difficult to do in-person field trips. So you may want to start reaching out to vendors if you haven't already done so, to see if their field trip can be done virtually, planetariums, and do things virtually. Just find out what your vendor can or cannot offer. But you still want to try to offer some type of field trip to your students, especially now a lot of them have been cooped up and they need some type of something fun and educational to take their mind off of whatever situation is going on at home, be it at school. The field trips, as we all know, must have some type of academic connection, uh, preferably to what the students are currently learning or something that they have learned. But it has to be, and yes, we still want it to be fun, but it has to have some type of academic connection. Um, and you cannot exclude anyone from the field trip. If they're a 21st century student, then they're eligible to go on the field trip. And another issue with that we've noticed over the years, programs say, "I don't have time, I don't know when to take the students on the field trip." The field trips cannot be taken when the students are supposed to be in regular school during regular school hours. So you have to be a little bit creative. Saturdays, uh, teacher in service days when the teachers are working but the students are out, if that's possible. But any other day when the students are not supposed to be in school is when you can schedule those field trips. Next slide.
Jamal, we have a question about field trips, if you don't mind me launching it.
Go ahead. When should you submit a field trip request form? Give you a few minutes to answer that. And again, if you can't answer it in the actual poll, go ahead and type it in the chat box.
Okay, Jamal, can you see the results?
I cannot this time.
Okay.
Hmm.
Most of the results show 20 business days prior to the field trip, which is absolutely correct.
Yes, we do need advance notice. Don't take the field trip and then ask us after you've done it. Some of the field trips may not be something that we would have approved. So just if you're unsure about it, always ask prior to you taking the field trip, just in case you're not. The field trip may be kind of one of those on the fence. You're not sure. Check with us. We'll make sure it's something that's um, academically connected, and then we'll get you an answer and say yes, that's approved, or no, you might want to think about something else.
Even if your field trip form was included with your continuation application, we do still expect you to submit a field trip form 20 business days prior to your actual field trip. Because just because you submitted it in your continuation application does not mean you're going to take it. Always. So please be sure to submit that prior to 20 business days. Thanks, Jamal.
Thank you, Shonda. And I want to go back to something else that was said earlier. If you have not, some of the applications may have been written by somebody else and you had no part in it, or you had no say in it, and now you're in charge of this program. Please, ma'am, please, sir, get a copy of that application and read it, because you are responsible as a project director for what's in that application. If you need to make changes, you need to see what's in there first. If something was written in there, you're going to be held responsible for what's in that approved application. So please take the time to read the application. Okay, get off my soapbox. All right, next slide, please. Okay, now we're going to talk about monitoring. Joyce kind of spoke about it a little bit earlier. Again, as of right now, we do have the schedule available, but as of right now, based on what's the current climate, looks like everything's going to be virtual. But we ask that you do, if things do change and turn around, we ask that you be flexible. We may do on-sites, we don't know right now. But your grant manager will be in contact with you to let you know, yes, it's going to be virtual, or we're thinking about coming out to the site. It's just based on our level of comfort and also what's going on in your respective districts. Okay, so what we expect to see, and let me back up a second. The monitoring is never an I got you. This team is not set up that way. This department is not set up that way. We're not here to get you, we're here to help you. So we're going to email you the monitoring tool in advance to let you know this is what you should have, this is what we're looking for, this is acceptable, this is not acceptable. So there are no surprises on either end. We're going to let you know when we're coming, what time we're coming. So to save yourself some anxiety and a little bit of headache, go ahead and set your notebook up, and we have one of your peers that's going to kind of discuss that later on. So the things that you see on the screen are things that you should have in a binder ready for us when we come out to see you. And I won't read through everything, but definitely want to make sure you have your approved application, your budgets, expense reports. This is your second or third year or whatever, and you have your previous evaluation report, so you can look at that. We can kind of do a comparison if need be, any correspondences or anything like that. But if you go through the monitoring tool, you'll see what you need to have for us when we come out, or if we do virtual, we ask for something else, you'll have it in hand already. Okay, and some important documents you see on the screen. I want to touch on that second one, the after-school safety plan. Yes, your school may have a safety plan in place, but again, that's for the regular school hours. You want to have an after-school plan that may be slightly different from the regular day school plan, because you have less teachers at the school, may not have a lot of administrators at the school, and you need a plan in case, let's say, God forbid, you have to evacuate the building, and you need a plan in place. Where we're going to go, where we're going to relocate if we have to evacuate the building. So you need to make sure that you have an after-school safety plan in place for you and your students, and make your parents aware of that as well. Let's see. Amy kind of talked about behavior. We're going to ask for documentation on that. Again, family literacy events, doing sign-in sheets. We need some type of documentation to show that you've had it, an agenda, any items from the event, sign-in sheets, because also you have to take that family literacy information and put it into the data hub. So not reporting in the data hub is not an option on family literacy. Let's see. Also, anything that you do it's better to have more documentation than none or not at all. So anything that you do that's grant related, I suggest, and a lot of the grant managers will probably agree, go ahead and make sure you have the documentation already, sign-in sheets, agendas, anything that you did, if to prove that you carried out the activities that you said you were going to do.
Jamal, I also have a poll question regarding documentation. Do you mind if I launch it?
Go ahead and launch. How do you organize documentation for your program? Again, if you can answer in the poll, go ahead. If you're unable to answer in the poll, go ahead and type it in the chat.
Yes, and your answers could be my binder is fluid and updated regularly. I prepare with needed information based upon the monitoring tool prior to the monitoring visit. I maintain electronically. I access and gather information only as needed. I do not maintain a binder or other. If there's an other way that you maintain your documentation, let us know.
Okay, I can see the results this time. So let's see. Looks like overwhelmingly we have the first answer is my binder is fluid, updated regularly. Also too, a program as I forgot how long ago, can we have everything electronically? And I believe as a team we discussed that. And the conclusion was, as long as you can provide us with everything that we're asking for on the monitoring tool, then you can keep the documentation electronically. Just to save yourself from space and lugging a notebook or notebooks around. But as long as you can store it electronically and you can provide it to us if we're doing on-site monitoring, then that's perfectly fine.
And I'm just going to chime in here. Many of you You maintain your binder, it's fluid and updated regularly, which is wonderful. We do see some answers here where some only prepare prior to their monitoring visit. That's not a great idea. You should maintain that documentation always, because waiting until your monitoring visit, you'll be scrambling and there's bound to be something you may miss. Even if it's not something that you're going to miss, you know, you want to be able to go straight back to all the documentation that you may need, even for the data hub, which is updated more frequently than our monitoring visits. Okay, so just to let you know, just to reiterate that it is a good idea to have your binder be fluid, whether it's electronic or paper, and constantly updating it. Thank you, Jamal.
Thank you, Shonda. Yeah, you don't want this to be a stressful time. So just go ahead and pre-plan, not a day before. Like a lot of people said, you saw the answer, it's fluid. You should be taking stuff in and out. Your schedule may change. You may add a different enrichment activity and completely stop one. So that's that notebook or that electronic notebook that you're keeping should be something that you're looking at on a constant basis. Okay, all right, next slide. All right, now I'm gonna turn it over to, is this back to Shonda? Or is this somebody from Grants Accounting?
This will be me.
This is Shonda, okay.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
All right. Amy, if you could try and give me control, I will try and see what I can do. If there's anyone from Williamsburg County on the line or in the meeting today, Miss Easterling is trying to get in somehow and it keeps.
I think I saw Miss Green, Barbara Green on.
Yeah, I don't know what the issue is, but we can't admit her for some reason. We've been trying to admit her for the last 10 minutes. So I don't know what to say about that. But thank you. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about gaps. Normally, Miss Pearlie Gant is the one who speaks on this, but you know, we just decided that we would just give you the highlights and move on from there. First of all, 3 roles must be assigned. And those 3 roles are the grant coordinator, grant finance, and finance approver. There must be at least 1 different person assigned to each of those roles for a total of 3 people. 1 person cannot have more than 1 role on the same grant, okay? Many of you already have that taken care of, but especially for new project directors, you know, you want to ensure that everything is in order and gaps so that you don't have any issues when it comes to receiving your expenditure reimbursements. I'm sorry, I should have my camera on. Please forgive me. Each person must be assigned. Each person to be assigned to a GAPS role must create their own account in the Member Center. The contact person must email the list of the 3 individuals, their email address, and the role they need to be assigned in the GAPS system, basically. So if there are any changes, if someone leaves and they have a new job and that person needs to be reassigned, you must send your email with the 3 roles to grantsaccounting@ed.sc.gov. Okay, it's not up to us. It's up to you to send that email so that each person can be reassigned as needed. The grants accounting section will request that the roles be created and will notify you once the roles have been established in GAPS so that, again, you won't have any issues with obtaining your expenditure reimbursements. Expenditure reporting. The entry will be done by the individual at the subrecipient level with that assigned role, okay? The entry will only be possible after the budget has been approved by our office, the SCDE. Now, many of you may have seen, and I don't know if the project directors have seen it, but definitely finance officials may have seen, if their budget that has been submitted in GAPS, it does not align with the approved GAN that was submitted, signed, and returned to us, it will be returned back to you until all the numbers agree with what is on the approved GAN. If there's a budget amendment that needs to be done, that needs to be done after the initial budget has been approved. Okay, the entry is done through the finance tab. The system will check the budget, and the entry will only be accepted if the budget is available in that category. Workflow to the assigned approving official at the subrecipient level will be sent for approval. Okay, so the person who enters it, it then flows to the workflow approval, and then it moves on to SCDE Finance for approval and processing for payments. Okay, so it goes through those 3 roles first prior to coming to the South Carolina Department of Education. Payments are made weekly. The cutoff is most Fridays by 5 o'clock. Okay, so by Friday, if you have your expenditure requests in GAPS, more than likely the following Wednesday, everything will be processed. Tuesday mornings, the reports are run and figures prepared for the weekly cash draw. And Wednesday, checks or direct deposits are done. Please reconcile your books. If you have entered an expenditure and it was approved before Friday at 5, the payment should be in your treasurer's office by the end of the following week. Are there any questions in that regard? Okay. Any questions that you have that could be related to your budget or to budget amendments, you would need to contact your grant manager, okay? The grants accounting staff does not approve or return budget amendments, okay? They do not approve or return your initial budget that is submitted in GAPS. All of that, you would need to contact your grants manager. That would be either me, Jamal, Amy, Latasha, or Miss Joyce, okay? Any questions with regard to budget approval? That's your initial budget. You would need to contact us about that as well. If you see here in bold, anything regarding your expenditures, your expenditure requests, expenditure refund status, you would need to send a screenshot with your question to gaps@grantsaccounting.ed.sc.gov. Okay? They ask that in order for them to assist you and to make sure that they're helping you in the best way possible, that you send them a screenshot. Provide as much detail as possible in your initial question so that they can research it prior to contacting you and make sure that they get your question answered effectively and efficiently. If you need help with running reports, you would need to send your question to Grants Accounting. A team member will call or provide instructions via email so that you get all of the information that you need. The Grants Accounting email is monitored all day, so your concerns or questions usually are addressed fairly quickly, and it also allows for tracking in case there's issues and there's the need for troubleshooting. They do have some training videos that are on our website. The online videos can be found at www.ed.sc.gov/finance/grants accounting. Okay, there are some tutorial videos that you can go through on your own time and familiarize yourself with grants accounting or with gaps. And if you have any questions, you can submit your questions to the email we provided. Are there any questions? All right, short and sweet. Next are financial pitfalls. I'm trying to see here. I think I had a budget question. Oh, not yet. Okay, what are my responsibilities? With regard to your monies, your grant funds, your responsibilities are to expend those grant funds in accordance with the approved budget narrative and grant application. Okay, it shouldn't be any plainer. What you said you were going to do in your grant proposal that has been approved and we funded your money for, that's what we expect you to spend the money on. Okay, it is your responsibility to maintain a separate account for any records and for each source of funds, including your matching funds. For instance, now many school districts don't necessarily have this problem because they have separate accounts or a separate funding name for each grant that is awarded. But sometimes with some of our non-LEAs, we may see that funds may have been intermingled with another source of funds. That is not the way we need you to do it. You need to maintain a totally separate account for 21st century funds. If you have multiple 21st century funds, if you have multiple 21st century grants, each grant should have its own separate account. Okay. How do I know expenditures are allowable? If you're spending according to your approved budget and budget narrative, then it's allowable because we've already looked at it normally. Now, we're human, so sometimes there could be an oversight. So it's always good to have some sort of backup or some sort of process in place where you have someone who can look at that expenditure and say, well, hey, I know that 21st century, that's not allowed in 21st century. It could be something entertainment. And maybe it's a field trip that's not allowed. You know, someone should be able to say, hey, we can't do this. We can't go to Carowinds with 21st century funds on a date that is not an approved education date. Okay. If you are spending your funds in accordance with your grant proposal, those funds should be necessary and allocable. Basically, they're necessary if it's already listed in your grant proposal. Okay, if you're providing music enrichment and you want to spend your funds on something that's not related to music, then it's not necessary or allocable to that grant. Okay, it must be reasonable for the performance of your project. Your funds cannot be spent to buy a stage, okay, if you're going to have a music program. Okay, that's something that's a bit too big. We don't necessarily buy equipment, and we don't purchase fixed assets. Okay, so it would be unreasonable for you to say we need to build a stage using 21st century funds. That's a no-no. Okay, so that's not allowable, but what is allowable would probably be something that would be movable. Maybe it's your separated risers, possibly, but that's something you can discuss with your grant manager. Okay. your funds are allowable or your expenditures are allowable if they conform to whatever exclusions or limitations that are listed in statute. Federal government may say, if you're familiar with your regulations, usually entertainment is not an allowable expense. The purchase of food is not an allowable expense, but there are some exclusions or limitations to that. One exclusion is you can purchase food only if it's for staff development or if it's for a cooking class, okay? However, you cannot purchase food because, oh, I just want the kids to have a party. I want the students to have a party. I want to reward the students with some candy. You cannot use grant funds for that, okay? They must have a cost basis to support the identification of the amount. Many new project directors may not have experienced this, or as Jamal listed, maybe you had a grant writer or someone else to develop your budget and you're unsure when it comes down time for continuation. We're going to ask you for your new budget for your new grant award amount for next year. Well, you may not know how to do that. What we ask for a cost basis would be if you intend to purchase 10 iPads, the cost basis would be 10 iPads at $199 each, so it supports the amount that you're requesting. Okay, or 10 iPads at $200 each, that's $2,000. Show your work, basically. If you're teachers, you know what that means. Show your work. It must have a cost basis, and that cost basis must be reasonable. All of the expenditures should be consistent. Basically, that's self-explanatory. It must be categorized with generally accepted accounting principles. At the back of your handbook, you may see some account code definitions. Those accounting codes, those are aligned with our with generally accepted accounting principles. Some of you may need to add right here in your budgets. Maybe you can talk this over with your finance areas, but some of you may have submitted your budget in gaps all under function code 100, which is instruction. But all of your funds may not be used specifically for instruction. For instance, if the project director is being paid using these funds, maybe that project director's salary should not be included under instruction. Instruction is for direct instruction to students. Maybe you're providing some staff development. Staff development is not 100 for direct instruction to students. Staff development might be 200 or 220, which is teacher support or instructional support. So definitely go through those account code definitions to ensure that your budget is categorized correctly, okay, for the particular function and the object. The objects are always salaries, benefits, purchase services, supplies. It could be indirect cost or other funds, but definitely when it comes to the various functions that you're going to be using your funds for, everything is not 100 for direct instruction. Your purchase service may not be direct instruction. It may be only if you're providing a class for that student or for this direct instruction to the students. However, if you're providing field trips, purchase services would fall under a different function code. Okay, so please be sure to check that out at the back of your handbooks. Okay, your expenditure should not be included as an item of cost in any other federally funded program. That's supplanting. If you are already paying someone using federal funds to perform a particular objective, then you cannot use 21st century funds to pay that person for the same objective. Okay? All grant activities have been approved by SCDE during the pre-award revision process. Okay, prior to your award, we may have discussed your budget. We may have asked you to make some changes. Any changes to what was already approved must receive prior approval from SCDE in the form of a budget amendment or a program modification. You will be reimbursed for any expenditures on cost reimbursement basis. Basically, you have to spend the funds before you can be reimbursed those funds. Okay? Expenditure reports, including invoices, receipts, timesheets, any other backup documentation, you must maintain all of those sources, all of those source documentation. Okay, so anything that you ask for reimbursement for, you should have a backup for. Budget and program modifications and amendments. I have a poll question here that I'm going to launch right quick. Hopefully. Okay, great. Can you all respond? What is the difference between the budget amendment and the program modification? I'll give you a couple minutes. All right. What did I do here? Okay, we're seeing the responses here. The program modification changes the scope of the original grant proposal. That is correct. The budget amendment moves funds from one category to the other. That is also correct. We got you with with there being multiple answers, but definitely the program modification changes the scope of the grant. Changes to the scope of work to include the schools, the site locations, changes to key staff, transfer of funds, all costs requiring prior approval, changes to your total award amount, extension of grant awards, changes to approved subrecipients, all of those require an amendment. In a budget amendment request in GAPS, please submit the reason for the change and must show all the details, okay? Justification, rationale for the need for the change. And these changes must be aligned with the RFP and your grant award. Included in the budget amendment should be how that change is going to impact the budget. You must justify any decreases or increases on your budget line items. It could be you received a discount on your 10 iPads that you purchased, and you want to use those remaining funds somewhere else. Okay, simple as that. Just be sure to provide all the detail. The program modification request changes your scope, changes your location. You must definitely provide all the details on why that program change is needed. It could be you had a water leak at your site and you had to move to a separate site, a different site. It could be that the district, in the environment that we're in, the district closed the school on Wednesdays. So you're unable to run your program on site on Wednesdays. So any change to the scope of your program, you need to submit a program modification and provide all the details. All program modification requests need to come to your grant manager. You'll discuss it, and that needs to be done as quickly as possible, not after you have made the change. Prior to the change being made, you need to submit your program modification request, and they will usually research it and try and get back with you within 10 business days. Costs can be disallowed by SCDE. Any reported expenditure that violates term conditions of the grant is over the threshold. Expenditures on unapproved line items, disallowed activities, it can be disallowed by the Department of Education, and you will be requested to submit a refund. Are there any questions? If not, we'll be moving on, but quickly I wanted to highlight that we do have an external organization profile. If you work with any vendors and you believe that they are very good vendors and they could provide services to more than just your organization, maybe they can, especially if you have a virtual vendor. We ask that you talk to your vendors and let them know that we do have an external organization profile here at the Department of Education, and they can be listed on our website. All of the programming, the enrichment programming that is provided, and they can possibly used by other organizations. Next, we'll have Melissa Myers. She's going to speak to us about auditing services. Melissa?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Shonda. Shonda, I need to request control. Or do I just scroll?
You can hit request control.
Okay.
And Amy should be able to give that to you.
Yep, I have it. Thank you.
Wonderful.
And today also I will have presenting with me in a little while Angela Chisholm, who is an auditor in the Office of Auditing Services, and she performs lots of the audits that's related to the 21st century grantees. So our discussion topics, we are going to speak with you today about 2 CFR Part 200, which is a federal regulation that talks about the management of federal grants. We will speak about the annual request for information, speak with you about OAS, which is the Office of Auditing Services Limited Scope Audit Process. We will talk to you about adequate supporting documentation that should be maintained as you draw down your claims and spend money for the grant. We will also speak about common audit findings and results, indirect costs, and resources. I can't scroll. Oh, I can't scroll to the next slide. Amy, can you advance the slide for me? Okay, so first thing again is 2 CFR Part 200, which is a Code of Federal Regulation. Two CFR Part 200 is the Uniform Administrative Requirements, Cost Principles, and Audit Requirements for Federal Awards. And you will also hear this commonly referred to as the Uniform Grant Guidance. And the Uniform Grant Guidance is a consolidated set of rules for non-federal entities, including state and local governments, Indian tribes, institutions of higher learning, and nonprofit entities. At one point in time, there was a separate cost principle or separate cost regulation for each one of these entities. The state and local governments had a separate set of rules, institutions of higher learning, or IHEs, had a separate set of rules, and nonprofit entities had a separate set of rules. So the thought process behind the UGG was to consolidate all of these separate policies and rules into one common set of rules for all non-federal entities. Okay, so one significant part of 2 CFR Part 200 is that there is an audit requirement for any non-federal entity that spends $750,000 or more in federal funds. If you meet that threshold, and that's in total, that doesn't mean just in funds that came just from the State Department of Education, but all federal funds that you have received or expended in total in a fiscal year. If it totals more than $750,000, then you must have a single audit. Also, there are some required written procedures in 2 CFR Part 200, and some of those include procedures for determining the allowability of costs in accordance with federal cost principles and the terms and conditions of the federal award. And by this, we just want to show you to indicate in writing, what do you do at your entity, at your school district, at your nonprofit, to show that you are ensuring that you are expending funds only on allowable purposes. So whatever those procedures are, that must be documented in writing. Also, you can go back, please. Thank you. Also, there are procedures, required procedures for cash management. And for cash management, we're talking about the timely request for reimbursement of expenditures. The SCDE wants you to draw down funds at least quarterly. So we expect to see a written procedure that states that you have procedures in place to make sure that you are drawing down your money at least quarterly. Also, in 2 CFR Part 200, there must be documented procedures for procurement, which reflect federal, state, and local laws and regulations. So we do like to see your whatever your written procurement policy is when we are performing an audit. Next slide. Additional required written procedures. You must have standards of conduct covering conflicts of interest and for governing the performance of your employees engaged in selection, award, and administration of contracts. We see oftentimes where there is a conflict of interest policy in school districts for your board itself, but this standards of conduct for conflicts of interest is talking about those who are involved in the procurement of goods. So there should be, in addition to your board conflict of interest policy, there should be another conflict of interest policy that's solely for your procurement officials, and that's a requirement under 2 CFR Part 200. Also, there are mandatory disclosures. You must disclose in writing in a timely manner any violation of federal criminal law involving fraud, bribery, or gratuity violations that could potentially affect your award. And after each one of these requirements, you see where I have the citations where you can actually go back yourself and look and see what the specific citations say. So we encourage you to become familiar with the UGG for additional required written procedures and other requirements. I just highlighted a few of them right now. Next. And this is also very important. In 2 CFR Part 200, it states that an official that's authorized to legally bind the non-federal entity must certify on annual and final fiscal reports or vouchers requesting payment, and the certification is listed here in quotes. It states, by signing this report, I certify to the best of my knowledge and believe that the report is true, complete, and accurate, and the expenditures, disbursements, and cash receipts are for the purposes and objectives set forth in the terms and conditions of the federal award. And pay attention to the part that's bolded, where it says, I am aware that any false, fictitious, or fraudulent information or the omission of any material fact may subject me to criminal, civil, or administrative penalties for fraud, false statements, false claims, or otherwise. And again, I have that citation right there. So just make sure that if you are the person who's signing off on these fiscal reports, if you're the person who is signing off on the vouchers, requesting payment, if you're signing off in gaps for the reimbursement, that you understand that your signature means that you're certifying that everything here is true, is complete, is accurate, and that you accept the fact that if you, for some reason, know that it's false or fictitious or fraudulent, that you could be penalized criminally, civilly, or administratively. Next. Additional, oh, I think this is actually a duplicate slide. Go to the next slide. Next slide. You can go back one. I'm sorry, I don't know why I can't control this myself. It's an annual request for information. If you are a non-LEA, every year you will receive an email with the memo attached from our office that asks you to complete a federal program questionnaire, which is like an internal control questionnaire that was developed by our office. And then also with that completion of that federal program questionnaire, we also ask you to submit to us your annual audit report. So if your annual audit report, as I stated earlier, you're spending more than $750,000 or more in federal awards, then that audit report must be a single audit report. If we review that audit report and see that you have a finding that was related to the 21st Century Program, we will forward that finding to the Office of Student Intervention Services so that they can review it and see what the issue was in relation to their program, and they will issue a management decision on that finding. A management decision means that they will say whether they agree or disagree with that finding and tell what other action that the program office wants you to take as a result of that finding. It could be that they could require you to attend various trainings. They could ask for a repayment of funds if we see that any funds were disallowed, but that's what a management decision would be. If you're a non-LEA and you don't have an audit report, then we ask you to send your year-end financial statements or the IRS Form 990, your general ledger, or your bank statements. And how it's listed here on this slide is actually that the hierarchy of how we want you to send that information to us. So we want the year-end financial statements. If you don't have that, then the 990. If you don't have that, the general ledger and the bank statements is like the last thing that we would ask you to send. So that, again, that's the hierarchy, how we want you to send that information. If you are an LEA or a school district, each year there is a requirement in state law that says that you must have an annual audit report done, and that report must be submitted to or through our LAR system, which stands for the LEA Audit Reporting System, by December 1st of each fiscal year. Same thing, LEAs are a non-federal entity, so if you expended $750,000 or more in federal awards, then it must be a single audit report. If you submitted less than $750,000, then it should be a financial statement audit. And the same as with the non-LEAs. If we review your audit report and we see that there's a finding related to the 21st Century Program, again, we will forward the program office a copy of that finding so that they are aware of it and ask them to submit a management decision. Okay, so we do various types of audits in our office. And right now, we're going to discuss with you our limited scope audit process. So we have a limited scope audits that we do every year, and we use a risk-based approach to select subrecipients for audits. I spoke earlier about the federal program questionnaire being an internal control questionnaire. That is one source that we use to determine who we're going to select each year to have a limited scope audit. We review those responses on that questionnaire. Audits can also be performed by request of the program office. We also have an annual risk assessment, subrecipient risk assessment process at the agency, in which each program office rates their subrecipients on various criteria, and we use the responses on that risk assessment also to determine who will have a limited scope audit each year. The objective of the audit is to determine whether the entity's use of the grant funds was allowable. Remember earlier I said you must have written allowability procedures. So we're making sure that your use of funds was allowable. We're making sure that it was necessary. We're making sure that it was reasonable and allocable based upon the grant award agreement and your state and federal laws and regulations. Their limited scope audit can be done in two forms. It could either be a desk audit or it could be performed on site. And of course, right now with us still being in COVID, audits are being done for the most part as a desk audit. So a desk audit is performed at our office. We ask you to submit written policies and procedures, your general ledger, and documentation to support a sample of expenditures. If the audit is done on site, it will be conducted at the entity's location. Prior to us coming out, we ask for you to submit to us a copy of written policies and procedures and your general ledger. Once we come on site, we then will make other requests for documentation, such as an expenditure claim or a support for an expenditure claim. And we'll ask questions while on site, get your answers. We'll have an entrance conference, have an exit conference before we leave, so that you will know what the results of your audit are. If we are performing a limited scope audit, we send advance notification, and that notification will let you know exactly what period we were testing, the dates of the on-site visit, if it will be on-site, and a documentation list request. So now we're going to talk to you about the supporting documentation that we actually expect to see and hope that you are maintaining when you're asked to, when you get notified that you have a limited scope audit performed. So right now I'm going to ask Angela Chisholm, who's again the auditor in our office, to turn on her camera, and she's going to go over the adequate supporting documentation piece for you. Angela. You're muted.
Good morning, everyone. Guidelines for retaining documentation to support expenditure memo. Descriptive memos detailing what documents should provide to substantiate claims filed for reimbursements of expenditures. You can find this at the Financial Audit Manual, the link listed below.
We have also included it in the handbook.
All right, in the handbook as well. Thank you, Shonda. Claims for payroll and employees' benefits. They would include timesheets for hourly employees, personal activity reports, PARs, multiple cost objectives. That could be a federal reward, a non-federal reward, an indirect cost, an activity, and a direct cost activity, 2 or more indirect cost activity, which are allocated using different allocation bases, an unallowable activity, and a direct or indirect cost activity. Semi-annual certification, a single cost objective, It's like when an employee works on a single federal award or cost objective, like solely 100% of their job is on that particular program. The payroll register, labor history report, the salary agreement, the job description, and documentations of benefit rates for each type of benefits. And some of those benefits would be like the FICA, your retirement rate, and your indirect cost rate, maybe your medical benefits, percentage you use like for deducting your medical benefits. Purchase services, the contracts, the period of performances date, detailed descriptions of services to be rendered, contracts, amount, payment terms, authorized signatures, invoices to support payment made, timesheets, supplies, purchase orders, purchase requisitions, invoice and receipts, goods receipt, packing list. All right, with packing list, we got a lot of questions asking, why do we need packing slips? We need those packing slips with your documentation that verifies that those items were actually delivered to your facility or your district. Indirect costs, calculation of indirect costs rate charged, post of indirect costs to general ledger. Entities must have an approved restricted indirect cost rate in order to charge indirect cost rate to the grant. And those indirect cost rates are normally they are calculated annually by SCDE. Common audit findings results. Lack of required documentation to support personnel salary cost. Supporting documentation does not adequately support non-personnel costs submitted for expenditure reimbursements. Unallowable cost. Failure to adhere to the approved budget. Expenditure common audit findings. Expenditures report submitted for reimbursement before expenditures were both incurred and paid, made in advance of spending. Inadequate internal controls over technical items purchased with grant funds. Required written procedures on the CFR Part 200 not present or omits required language. Expenditures incurred and paid outside of the period of availability prior to the effective date of a grant or after the period end. Results of audit findings. Corrective action plan required for finding noted, repayment of funds, possible negative press coverage of audit, possibly report in federal awardee performance of integrity information system, FAPIS, entity possibly listed as suspended or debarred, possibly turned over to SLED and or U.S. Department of Education Inspector General. This part I will turn back to Melissa.
So I know before Angela, are there any questions about that, the documentation requirements? And Noshonda stated that guidelines memo is in the binder. Again, we issue that memo annually so that, and we send it to the program officers and ask them to share it with their subrecipients so that you all are aware of what documentation we are expecting you to maintain when we come out for an audit. And I just want to emphasize about the support for salaries, the PARs and certifications. Is like no matter how much we have said this, we still see for some reason where the PARs or semi-annual certifications are not maintained for employees being paid on a federal grant. For a semi-annual certification, if you work solely for 21st Century, that's your only cost objective, you do nothing else, then every 6 months you should have a certification that states that I, Melissa Myers, certified that I work 100% of my time on the 21st Century program from January 1st to June 30th of whatever said year it was. It must be signed by the employee and also must be signed by the supervisor or another individual that has firsthand knowledge of what you worked on. For the PARs, PARs must be completed on a monthly basis. Again, certification is semi-annual. The PAR is a monthly report, and that's for employees who work on multiple cost objectives. It could be that you work on 2 different federal programs. You could work on a state program and a federal program. But if you have some kind of federal supporting a federal cost objective, then it's not your entire 100% of your time, you must do that part, and it is monthly. I think I see Emily has a question about time and effort.
Do you mind if I unmute?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I had a question because a lot of 21st century employees are after school employees. So does 100% of their time equal the school day plus after school, or is that separate? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. What you can do well, I guess after school, like maybe from 3 to 6,
Mm-hmm.
that'll work for those employees. You could do a certification that certifies just for that period of time. That say, I certify that from the hours of 3 to 6, I solely worked on the 21st century program. That would be allowable.
Okay, so like, for example, if they were 100% employee paid out of Title I during the school day, 8 to 3, they could do a semi-annual for that. And then if they're working 21st century 3 to 6, do a semi-annual for that time. Is that right?
And when you say it that way, it's actually 2 different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually two different federal cost objectives. So in that case, that person will have to be to complete the PAR.
Okay. So 100% of their time equals like their full day, even if they're working extended hours.
That's correct.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions? I know time and effort is usually, that's a big one. Thanks. I don't see any others, so I just want to just briefly tell you about some audit findings that we have found that in our audits. So in September 2019, we issued a final audit report to a non-LEA that was awarded 21st Century grant funds to operate an after-school program at multiple sites. But during our audit, we found several instances where the entity sought reimbursement for charges that were unallowable, inadequately documented, unnecessary, unreasonable, and unallocable. And as a result, this entity had to or their corrective action plan was for them to repay an amount of $255,139.26. Next slide. This next one is not 21st century, but this was just recently in the news. And this was another audit that we performed of the Sumter County School District's use of CERDEP funds, which is the 4K program. We did an audit for fiscal years 2015-16 and 16-17, and the district was cited for charging unallowable, unnecessary, and unreasonable expenditures of $176,922.79 to the program. These purchases included items that should be used by adults instead of 4-year-olds, such as hammocks, adult tricycles, cookware, carpools, etc., as well as reimbursements for unreasonable trainings that were provided by the program director at a rate of $125 per hour. Now, this was in addition to her regular pay. She said that she was doing these additional trainings and she was being paid $125 per hour in addition to receiving her normal pay. And this was turned over to SLED. And when they investigated this, the early childhood director was indicted and she pled guilty in June 2021 to the state grand jury charge of accepting rebates and extra compensation and misconduct in office. She was sentenced to concurrent sentences of 7 years in prison, suspended upon 5 years probation, and was ordered to pay $80,000 in restitution. She admitted to duplicating timesheets to allow herself to be paid the $125 per hour in addition to her regular salary. Next slide. And this is another audit that we performed, and this one actually ended up being turned over to the U.S. OIG's office, which is the Office of Inspector General. So there's an elementary school, and they had, again, lots of unallowable costs, including $65,523 and $139,741,000 of unsupported costs to the 21st Century Grant. And these charges consisted of computer purchases that were erroneously charged to the grant more than once, salaries paid to employees who were not even working on the grant, expenditures for an event that occurred before the start of the program, which is a out of period costs, unallowable charges for food, and Shonda spoke about food being an unallowable charge earlier. The unsupported costs also consisted of payroll charges that were unsupported by the PARs that I just spoke about, undocumented charges for a field trip, and admission fees. And just want to go over those examples to show that we really do audit, and we do have some significant findings, and we do not want it to be this way. That's why we give you the guidelines memo in advance so that you can review it and make sure that you're maintaining your documentation as you should, because we do go out, we do find issues, and it does result in significant paybacks. And we're giving you the money to spend for the kids, and that's really what we want the use of it to be, for those allowable purposes. Okay, finally, I'll speak to you about indirect costs. And what are indirect costs? Indirect costs are those expenses of doing business that are not readily identifiable with the activities of a grant or a contract, but nevertheless incurred for the joint benefit of those activities and other activities or programs of the organization. And examples of indirect costs includes accounting services, auditing, budgeting, payroll, human resources, and purchasing. But just know that if you have a person, like you might have a grant accountant specifically for your program. If you have a grant accountant specifically for your program, that is a direct cost. But your finance director would probably be an example of an accounting service that is an indirect cost. An entity may charge indirect costs to a federal award by use of a negotiated indirect cost rate. However, you must not charge the same costs as direct costs and then charge them as indirect costs as well. That's called double dipping, and that is not allowed. We have the delegated authority from the U.S. Department of Education to negotiate indirect cost rates for school districts, and we calculate unrestricted and restricted rates every year for school districts, and that's based upon information that's received in the annual audit report on December 1st. And make sure that you also always remember that if you are claiming indirect costs, that the restricted rate is applied to all grants with the supplement not supplant clause. And the 21st Century Grant does have that supplement not supplant clause. So you must use a rate that does not, the restricted rate, or a rate not to exceed the restricted rate if you're claiming indirect costs for the 21st Century Program. An entity must have its own indirect cost rate before it charges indirect costs to a federal award. At one time, if you're a non-LEA partnering with a district, then you could have used your district's rate, but that's no longer allowed. Each entity must have their own indirect cost rate. If an entity does not have a restricted rate from a cognizant agency and plans to charge indirect costs during fiscal year 2021-22, an authorized entity official must request a rate from us to use on the grants awarded by the SCDE. Now, remember I said earlier, we automatically calculate the rates for the school district. So this statement really applies to our non-LEAs. If you want to charge indirect costs and you do not have a rate, then you must get with us at the office of auditing services to calculate a rate for you. And we kind of get this question a lot because 2 CFR Part 200 does discuss a 10% de minimis rate, but however, that rate does not apply to grants with the supplement not supplant clause. So we can't just give you a 10% rate to use for 21st century because of that clause. We must actually calculate a restricted rate for you. If you are a non-LEA and you want an approved indirect cost rate, you must submit the following information to the Office of Auditing Services, and that includes your financial statements as of the fiscal year end, a general ledger that covers the same time period as the financial statements you provided to us, an organizational chart, and provide any information or material that explains the various services or functions for each unit. And we need that so we can identify which units in your organization are indirect functions. We also need a schedule of total funding, which will indicate all federal funding received and the grantor. We need your IRS Form 990, a chart of accounts in which the actual dollars expended can be related to the various programs in the organizational structure, and a listing of equipment that you purchased, including the dates and the amounts during the most recent fiscal year. Once the information is received, we will work with you to get questions answered so that we can exclude unallowable costs and remove specific costs, for example, equipment and unused leave payouts or items that must be excluded from the pool. The average turnaround time is 30 days for us to issue an indirect cost negotiation agreement, but of course, it depends on how quickly you respond to our questions as well. And we have seen a few instances lately where entities are charging indirect costs, but do not have an approved indirect cost rate. That is an unallowable cost if you are charging indirect costs without having an approved rate. So make sure you have an approved rate before you charge indirect costs. And also, if you have an indirect cost rate agreement from another entity, that rate must be a restricted indirect cost rate. If that rate is not a restricted indirect cost rate, then you still need to come to us at the Office of Auditing Services so we can calculate a restricted rate for you. So here's some resources for you, and most of stuff is probably in your handbook already, but 2 CFR Part 200, I mentioned that several times, and that's the link to where you can find those Code of Federal Regulations. Our funding manual that's prepared by the Office of Finance each year that lists funding information, allowable expenditures, and allowable accounts for programs passed through the SCDE to include the 21st Century Program. I have the link noted there for that. The Financial Accounting Handbook is also updated annually by the Office of Auditing Services. And it's a chart of accounts and tables, and it states which revenue or expenditure codes are allowable in each fund. It has definitions. Again, Shonda was speaking earlier about the different function codes. If you're unsure of where an expenditure should be charged, refer to that Financial Accounting Handbook definition section so you can make sure that you are charging accounts appropriately, because that's another thing that will be noted when we perform our limited scope audits. If you misclassified expenditures, that would be a finding also. And again, the guidelines memo, which is very descriptive, very detailed, and I think Shonda mentioned this is in your handbook as well, but it tells you exactly what type of documentation that should be maintained for all of your expenditures. All right, right now, are there any other questions?
And if so, Melissa, I'm going to ask the program directors, project directors, if they will email any questions they might have to our office, and we'll make sure that you will get them just for the sake of time. But thank you, Melissa and Angela. Thank you so much. This was very informative.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And have my contact information is on the last slide also. I don't think you're sharing it out the PowerPoint, so you can contact any of us, me, Angela, or Shula Davis, or have the main number there. Please feel free to do so.
All right. Thank you again.
Thank
Next,
you.
thank you. Next up, we have Keith Deltano. Keith is going to join us and talk to us about character education videos. Keith.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, can you see me?
No.
Oh, that's not good. Please forgive me. I'm not as familiar with Microsoft Teams. We've got the camera on and you can't see me. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, something's happening.
But that's okay. We can hear you. So you can proceed.
All right, let's dismiss that and see what happens. All right, I'm gonna try to, can we share screens? Let's see if that'll work. I've got my partner here. All right.
You can try your screen.
Someone said to hit F7 for your camera, so try that.
Okay. F7.
All right. Oh, sorry.
Okay, I see.
All right.
Okay, we see your, well, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, you're sharing your screen.
All right, let's.
Wait.
Okay, there we go. All right, do you see a big ugly picture of me?
We see you, Keith.
Oh, so much better. Okay. So it's good to talk to you guys. It's an honor to be here. What I'm going to do is share some videos from my curriculum, and I'm going to be talking about particularly South Carolina. I'm glad you can hear me and see that frozen vision of me.
Keith,
you guys are on it, and right now, yes.
We are.
Yes.
Your voice is kind of wobbly in and out, so I don't know if the connection is all of a sudden not strong. I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you. Okay, does it work better?
I think so. Keep talking.
Now?
Okay, just go. Yeah. All right. Microsoft Teams.
No, they were.
I know. We're gonna make sure. Turn camera on. We're just. All right. More actions. Turn on. Incoming video. All right. Well, okay, just.
Can you hear me? I thought we had one. Put that in.
All right, honey.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, now let me see if I can get back to that screen. All right. Can you now I'm going to ask one more time. Please forgive me. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you and we
Yes.
can see your screen. Yes.
All right. Okay. Then we're good to go. So what we're seeing is a spike in mental health crises throughout the nation. And what we're seeing is a spike in mental illness and suicidal ideation, which are uncomfortable things to talk about. But you guys are on the cutting edge. You love kids. You're where you are for a reason. And particularly, we're seeing a lot of this in South Carolina and with groups that we've not seen before, 10 to 14-year-olds, which I know are a big part of, what are in your centers, what are in your 21st century programs. And the So what I want to do is talk to you about what's in the program for you guys to deal with what's happening with our kids. So what we see is a type of hopelessness in our youth culture right now, and the increases for South Carolina have been really dramatic. especially for Horry, Greenville, Charleston, Spartanburg, and Richland County. And what I want you to do is I want you to try to think about, okay, how can I use my center? How can I use my after school center and the resources now to deal with something that we've never seen as a Western culture? In other words, what we're seeing nationally, and I work all over America, is reflected everywhere. And what we're seeing is at earlier ages. So we're seeing things like anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, and eating disorders in ages that we didn't even think about it. And it's kind of happening under the radar, and the educational community has been a little bit caught nationally. I mean, it's kind of a little flat-footed because we have materials out there for the juniors and the seniors, because that's where these things used to live, but not as much for the 12 and the 13-year-old. So what I want to show you, you're looking at the screen right now, that after you log into the curriculum that you all have, you are on a video. So we're going to back up, and we're going to, this is the screen that once you log in, you should all be familiar with now, that have all the videos on it. So these are all video lessons and answers, and they're all, of course, divided into, cyberbullying, racism, drama, and mental health. And then that's the high school, middle school group. Down here, we have elementary school specific, drug and alcohol videos. These are all videos that you have access to and have had access to, and that are going, from what I understand, really well. I want to pay a particular attention to these videos that are available for you that deal with this epidemic that's occurring nationally and in South Carolina. So when you think of my curriculum, originally, the focus was bullying, racism, prejudice, reaching, a lot of topics that we have to deal with all the time, and we've been doing well dealing with all the time. These newer videos are ones I created to deal with what's happening, and most sociologists and psychologists believe it's because of the stress and anxiety of the pandemic. So what the pandemic did was take an already difficult situation and make it worse for a lot of our kids. So this first video, mental illness, asking for help, I created this video because what we're hearing from frontline people is the comment, "I didn't know." So a kid will attempt to hurt themselves or become depressed and anxious, and a lot of times we hear, "I don't know." And the reason why we hear "I don't know" is our kids don't know how to ask for help. So let's take a look at this video. I'm not going to play the whole thing. We're going to play the opening and the ending.
Keith, there's no sound.
Okay, I'm not sure how to fix that. Like I said, I'm not as familiar with Teams, Microsoft Teams. This video is called Mental Illness, Asking for Help, Why You Shouldn't Be Afraid. It's in the video library now. It's been really well received. It's available for you. So this will be a video, I would say, appropriate for 5th grade and above. And what this video does is it ends with a very hopeful message that, hey, you can win against this, young people. Come see us. Come talk to us. We can be there for you. We love you. We care about you. You're important to us. And we want to hear from you. And that's what this video does. And I'm getting response from people that are using it. Is what this video does is let the kids know it's okay. It's okay. Look, you're having bad thoughts. We love you. We want to hear from you. We know we can get you help. you know, you're having a situation in your life that you're embarrassed about. Hey, there's no reason to be embarrassed about it because we love and we care about you. So that's what this video does. And that video speaks to the embarrassment that they might feel about what they're dealing with. So what these videos do, this video here is another overwhelming, you know, we're here, we care, we want you to know that we're here for you. And it's not necessarily that you're saying you will help them. What we're saying with both of these is we can get them to the people that can, okay? Because South Carolina does have a pretty well established network. So that's, you know, those two videos are there for you. This video is there. This would be appropriate for middle school kids coping with mental health challenges during COVID and all the loss of structure. And because of course we're still not back to the way things were. And this is a way, this is targeted towards young people that are like, you know, okay, what do I do? How do I deal with, you know, the fact that things aren't the way they are? So that's that video group that's on the top. And the mental health videos are all in this top video group. In the elementary school level, I'm going to be coming out with something then, because what we're seeing now, like I mentioned, is new. We've not seen it before. Kids as young as 9 and 10 saying, you know, I'm not comfortable. I'm thinking about hurting myself. So I'm doing research on that and going to come out with something that's appropriate for that age level. And I'll also be coming out with more videos that you can target out to parents on mental health. So you all have the access to these videos, and then you also have the ability to send these videos when you hit this button. You have the abilities to send these videos out to children that are not on your physical campus. So you would pick the video and you can then send that to them and let them know, even if they're not on campus. So that's what I want to talk about. I really want to share that video with you, but I'm not sure how to make the sound work given my limited ability with Teams. Do you guys have any questions?
I do, Keith. This is Joyce. We have some project directors in the meeting that are brand new, so they don't have access. So would you just talk about what they need to do in order to get access to the videos?
Okay, all we need is your email. And once, if you would, sure, the easiest way to do that would be, let me give out my last name, Deltano. It's Deltano at bellsouth.net. So it's my strange Italian last name, Deltano at bell, what you ring, south, good sweet tea.net. Deltano at bellsouth.net. And we'd love to work with you. I am doing a Zoom meeting on October 13th in the evening. I'm much better with that. I spent a lot more time on that, and I'll be sending links out to everyone about exciting things that are happening with people that are using the curriculum. I'm coming out with new videos, like I described, to deal with the kids need hope and love, and they need to know that we're there for them because they're going through things that we never imagined. We didn't see this. Nobody saw this 3 years ago. Nobody knew about it. So we want to adapt to it and give you videos that can reach them in the places that they're hurting. So if you will email me at deltano@bellsouth.net, we will email you the login information. And an overview of the videos is there's videos on bullying, racism, resilience, mental health, suicide prevention. That's this group. You will receive bullying specifically targeted for the elementary age group. There are anti-drug and alcohol bullying videos, and all these bullyings, what's really cool for stressed out, maxed out directors is that each one of these videos is a built-in lesson. So what's great about this is, you can get your kids, hey, we've got this lesson, we're going to show this video. You play the video, of course you won't hear any sound. And the videos, and one of the feedback I got from your one of your directors, Joyce, was it was the most engaging video lessons that she's ever used. And this was from a 21st century site director. And at the end, you have questions. So the questions are already there, and there they are. Okay, so what happens after each video? There's your lesson plan. You don't have to write the questions. You don't have to format the questions. They're right there. And so you have a built, you have each video is a self-contained lesson. So I look forward to hearing from those new folks. We'll get them signed up and any questions they have. Is there anything else, Joyce?
I believe that's it. Thank you so much, Keith. I do want to let the program managers know that currently we have a contract with Keith that will end in January. So please take advantage, and hopefully we'll be able to renew the contract. But for now, it's due to end in January. So please take advantage of this wonderful opportunity and these resources that you can provide to your program and to your students. And if you have any questions after Keith gets off, just feel free to either email him or just email your 21st Century program team here, and we'll be certainly able to get a message to him as well. Thank you so much, Keith.
Love the kids. They need you.
Thank you, Keith.
Bye-bye.
All right. So now we are going to hear from some peer-to-peer presentations. And we are going to start with Donna Paget with Lexington School District 3. And she's a project director there. So we're going to turn this over to Donna. Thank you, Donna.
Good morning. I want to thank y'all for having me this morning. I was asked to talk about the monitoring tool and kind of what my process is getting prepared for a monitoring visit. And Joyce, can everybody see? Can everybody see my stuff?
We can only see you. I don't see.
Okay, I'll hold this
presentation.
What I do is when I know that my visit's coming at the beginning of the year, pretty much, I know what all I'm going to need to, from year to year, I know what I'm going to need to have. But I get my monitoring tool and I go through each question, and like for my interviews, I write down different people that I possibly want to do for that interview. And then I contact those people and get all of that lined up. When I come to my documentation, let me find my papers. What I basically do is I go through each requirement and then I look at the evidence examples, and I will write down, make myself notes where each evidence is listed, where I have it. I hope you can see it. I have my procedure manual and I tab it all at the beginning. So I know exactly if I'm going to section 3, when Shonda comes, I know this is going to be in section 3. And then I have that piece of evidence tabbed right there so she can immediately see what I'm, so I can immediately show her the evidence. I go through and I do that on every single section. Even if it's duplicated, I write down where I find each bit of information. I have my project manual, which is fairly big, which has all of my grant and my any kind of documentation, my GANs, previous reports, monitoring visit reports. I have all of that in my procedure manual. I go through, I have all my fiscal information that's needed, and I have basically at the beginning of the monitoring, I think it's like on page 3, it tells you about your handbook all the different sections that you need to have. And I think there are 9 listed there. I have 8 in my manual because I combine one. And so I go through, I make sure I have all of these sections, and then I know what's going to have to go in each section. For some of my sections, such as the transportation, I have broken down a lot of my information into separate notebooks, just because it's easier for me to keep up with that information. And since a lot of times there's a lot of information, too much to go into one main notebook. So I basically have sub notebooks. I have an attendance notebook where I keep all of our monthly and daily snack count sheets, monthly attendance sheets, daily attendance sheets. All of that information goes in the attendance notebook. I have transportation, which has all of our bus transportation forms by bus. We even have daily transportation checkoff sheets, which we include that in our safety plan. So we can make sure that at the end of the day, those students that are car riders, those students that are bus riders, that the after school staff that they're assigned to can check them off to make sure they get to where they need in the afternoon. I also have a staff notebook, which I keep all of our trainings and all the information that goes to staff daily. Any type of professional development goes in this notebook. And then I also keep all of our activities, special programs, sign-ups, parent sign-ups, and all. I keep it in a separate notebook. Then I have documentation for my purchase orders. They're by month, so that way I can easily, if I have to refer back to something, finance has a question, I know immediately where I can go quickly. And then I also have my timesheets in a separate folder that I keep in a locked cabinet. Again, all of this I make notes on, so when Shonda comes, I have all this information out on a table. I have my monitoring tool that I use right here, my procedure manual, all my different notebooks and folders. That way, so when she comes to a section and asks to see a certain bit of information, that I know exactly where to go to. I have it tabbed in my main notebook or my individual notebooks to make the process go a lot faster and easier on Shonda. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Donna. And she is correct. Our monitoring visits are smooth sailing. She has everything organized and everything is ready. So that is why we kind of asked that, that Donna would share some of what she does to prepare for our monitoring visits. Is there any other question? Mr. Matthew Wilson, were you trying to ask a question? You have to unmute yourself. Or type your question in the chat, either or.
And Shonda, I just want to kind of re-emphasize what y'all have said earlier. This is not, at first, I'm sure, the first one you get nervous, but there's really nothing to be nervous about because the grant managers are there, to help you. If you have questions, if you're unsure about documentation that you have, all you have to do is ask, okay, what additional do I need? And they are just so very helpful, and their job is to make our job a lot easier and to help us in any way that we can to make sure we are providing the correct documentation and keeping that for our grant. So, it's just there's nothing to be scared. They're not out to get us or anything. They're here to help us.
Are there any questions? Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Donna. It's
All right.
always great to receive your expertise.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't know if Joyce is going to jump back on, but next we'll have Barney Gadsden, who is going to talk to us about sustainability and partnerships.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. It is indeed a pleasure to share with you about community partnerships and buy-in. One of the things that sticks in my mind from the beginning, and it goes back to I like to read a lot, and I like to read John Maxwell, Stephen Covey, those type guys. And I think back when we talk about community partnerships and buy-in to habit number 2 of the 7 habits of highly effective people. And that's you begin with the end in mind. And when we first received notice that we have been awarded a grant to serve children, we must think about the end process, because these grants aren't designed to sustain your program forever. So you must begin with that in mind. So how do you do that? I believe that the first thing that you must do is you must understand that as a leader, you're not going to know everything. You're not going to know everything about your program and the inner working of your program. But what you must do is you must have people in place that do. So you must know who to go to. And with that in mind, then you need to, I believe that the project directors, one of their main functions is then to sell what we do to the entire community. And we do that by going out and talking to all of the stakeholders in our community when it comes to children. And everyone in the community has a vested interest in seeing that our children receive the best education possible. That's in the day school and in the after school environment. And that takes a lot of conversation and a lot of selling what we do. And I believe that the best way to do that is to always invite folks, let them know what you're doing. Not only let them know, but invite them to come out and see, constantly talking to them. And then there's some things that we all have in common that I believe that you need to do, and it's important. I believe it's important that you talk with the newspaper in your area or in your city or your town or in your county. Talk to the reporters and let them know what you're doing. A lot of times there's slow news days in our areas. You know, when there's a slow news day, they'll have something that they can report on. They can report on your program and what you're doing and the good work that you're doing, and they need to know that. Not only the newspaper, but TV stations, radio stations. Get to know the people in your community that are part of these media outlets that can then help you to sell what it is that you do. That way it becomes easier when you need additional funding for things that our grants don't cover. You can establish partnerships with those, and you will find that it helps. I'll just give you an example of something that we did here in Sumter a few years back. A number of years ago, we needed a van. At the time, we were a part of the Kids Cafe program with Harvest Hope. And we needed a van or a truck, box truck, to go to Columbia to pick up food so that we could serve our children a hot meal. Well, we didn't have that. So I went to a local car dealership, and I didn't know the owner of this car dealership. I just took our brochure and our grant description of what we were trying to do, and I went in and I told him, and I asked him, I said, I need to ask you something. And he said, oh, how can I help you? And I said, I need you to give me a van. And I was surprised when he didn't say no, because I'm used to hearing no. And as a project director, going out and selling your program and asking for things, you must get used to hearing no, but you only have to hear yes once. Well, anyway, what he told me was, let's go into my office and see how I can best help you. Well, long story short, he said, well, if I give you a van, you'll have a lot of expenses that you obviously don't have the money for. So he said, how about anytime you need a van, you go across the street to this company that I own that rents and leases vehicles. And he said, anytime you need it, just go over there and get it, and then they will send the appropriate bill and documentation to me, and I will take care of it. And we did that for a number of years. We established a partnership with that dealership and that was probably uh, 15 years ago now. And that partnership has grown over the years to the point where that van that he once let us lease, he was able to then give us a van for $500 that we were able to buy. And the $500 ironically came from Continental Tires here in Sumter. They heard about our program through our parents, who are also good advocates to sell our programs, because our parents work in these different organizations and places. And a parent told the folks at Continental about what we were doing to help her children. And we got a call from Continental that offered us $500 to help us with the program. And that $500 covered the cost of the van that we now have that we use to, we no longer go to Harvest Hope, but we now, our programs have grown enough that we have been able to work through DSS, which is another partner, where we're able to provide a hot meal and a snack with our children through the CACFP program. All these are things that I'm talking about that we all have access to, going out and talking and selling our programs to the folks in our communities. And once we do that, it's helpful to know that we have to be looking at how can we do this in the long term. We never know when grant funds are going to dry up. Congress may decide at any time that they're not going to reauthorize 21st century, and there's no more 21st century funds throughout the country. Then what do? We don't want to tell children or have children going home unattended in those hours after school. So we must always be working on and trying to find ways that we can sustain our programs over the long term. And I'll just say that there are partners that we have in our communities, the local churches. There is, and here in Sumter, we use Sumter Behavioral Health Services when we're having children that are, and particularly now, that are struggling through COVID and some of the challenges that they have. So we have behavioral health services in our communities, the local gallery of arts and the arts commission in our community. One of the things that we found was the arts commission. We looked at how when we go out to try to find partners, we try to look at win-win situations for them and us. And one of the things we found with the art gallery, the arts commission here, was that they had funding for arts programs for children, but they weren't getting a whole lot of children during the hours after school because their parents were working and the children could not get there. Well, what we have is children in a fixed location. So we partnered with them to come out and provide the art services to our students at no cost to us. It's a win for us because our children are receiving art education. And it's a win for them because when they go apply for their next round of funding, they have some evidence that they are indeed in the communities and working with children. So I'll just say that always try to create win-win situations. Use all of the tools in your toolbox when it comes to selling your program and branding your program. I believe that branding is important. Here in Sumter, we have branded our 21st Century Community Learning Center programs. We've dubbed our programs with the title of HYPE. It's called HYPE, H-Y-P-E, and that's an acronym for Helping Youth Pursue Excellence. And in Sumter, you'll find that if you ask most people in Sumter, have they ever heard of HYPE or know about HYPE, they will tell you yes, because we have HYPE on everything. We try to brand our programs, and through partners, we've been able to do that. So just go out and sell. Anybody that'll listen, talk to them about your program and what you're doing, because you never know who might be the person that can tell someone about what you're doing to help you to become much better at what you do. One of the other things I'll say, and I'll let this be the last thing, and because there's so much I could tell you about partnerships. About 2 years ago, when the kids, everybody started using Chromebooks, our program is not in a school, are not in schools. We're out in the communities. We were finding that our internet was a bit slow, and we didn't have the funding to cover the increased cost to up our speed. So what we did was got a message to Senator Tim Scott, and I didn't know whether someone would contact me or not, but I did what I needed to do. I got a message to Senator Scott's office and asked them if they would call Spectrum and ask Spectrum to help us with our internet bill so that we could up the speed. And lo and behold, after I made that first call, within 30 minutes, I got a call from someone from Senator Scott's office. And when they called me, I told them what I needed. They said, we'll get back with you. They got back with me again within 2 hours. And they said, the senator said to them, why not, let's ask him to help you with the internet speed, but let's also ask him for some money. Well, long story short, within a week, we got $2,500 to help us cover the cost of our internet until they could get things worked out. This is Spectrum. Spectrum called and said, what do you need? And they helped us with the internet bill with $2,500. And he called back and said, well, as I was sending a thank you letter, I got another check in the mail for another $2,500. So at that point, we had $5,000. So then they called back and said, well, let's do this. We want to partner. Here it is, a win-win. We want to come out and do a Spectrum event. We invited the representatives from Spectrum. We had all of our parents here. We had students. We had someone from one of our legislative representatives in the State House was here. Our mayor, our superintendent, some of our students, and we did a roundtable where we talked about technology. Well, during this event, Spectrum also presented us with a check for another $5,000. So they gave us a total of $10,000, and then they offered our parents, all of our parents, internet at their homes at a reduced rate. So that's what I mean by going out and selling your program and talking to anyone who will listen. And you can hear no every day, but you only have to hear a yes once, and it can help your program tremendously. I know we're rushed on time, so I'll end there, and thank you for your time, and I hope that helped.
Barney, that is awesome. Thank you so much. Please take away some of the things that Barney said with regard to selling your program, talking to whomever you can talk to, your representatives, the newspaper. You know, you can hear no and not a lot, but all you need is one yes. And right now you're at no. So it doesn't hurt to continue to ask and see what you can do to help your program. That is awesome. Joyce?
Can you hear me? You can hear me? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again, Donna and Barney. And we're coming towards the end, but this is really important piece. A lot of you have had communications with Samantha Snigowski from AIR. Actually, it's the American Institutes for Research, but we call them AIR. And she is responsible for all things data related. So the data hub and all that piece. So she is here to give you information and answer any questions that you might have. Welcome, Samantha.
All right, thank you so much, Joyce. I just want to make sure that you can hear me okay.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen as well. And can you confirm that you can see that screen as well?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. Thanks so much, everyone. It's really good to be back on a call with all of you. I see a lot of familiar names on the participant list and also some new ones. So I hope programming is going well so far. My time today, I wanted to give a few updates related to the Data Hub and other program supports that are available to you as you continue to offer your programs. So I just want to run through those really quickly. But first, before we get started, I want to do a little bit of introduction to the team here at AIR that you will likely be conversing with at some point. We'll go through the Data Hub overview. I'll do a very quick demonstration of it, just especially for new folks who haven't had a chance to take a look at it. I know a lot of you are very familiar with it, but there are some changes that I really want to highlight so that we can expect them when we do open this up. I'll highlight some important dates and where you can find help in relation to the Data Hub. And then I also want to recap some program supports that are available to you that we've been working on over the last year or so, and just kind of remind you where those things are located, what types of things are there. So that is our agenda for today. Our team, so I know most of you at this point have had some conversations, but my name is Samantha Snagowski. I'm a senior researcher here at AIR, and I'm the project director for the statewide evaluation work of the 21st Century Program in South Carolina. I have two colleagues that work primarily on this project that you'll probably have some contact with at some point. Femi Vance, who is a researcher here, and she assists us with anything related to our technical assistance that we provide, anything related to continuous quality improvement efforts, and then also the supports that I'll be showing you a little bit later in our presentation. And Ivana Paraga is a research assistant here, and she is responsible for managing our help desk for the Data Hub. So if you do have questions related to the Data Hub, it's likely that you will be having a conversation with her at some point. So that is our team. And now really quickly, I do want to do a Data Hub overview and highlight especially some of those things that have changed or that you'll see that are different in this next year. So before I do that, just a little bit of context on why we have this Data Hub. We have to collect data as a part of the 21st Century Grant to kind of fulfill three purposes. One is to support federal data submission requirements. So every 21st Century program that receives this funding must submit data on a key set of indicators, and that's determined by the federal government. So we take the information that you all put into the Data Hub and translate that into the required elements for federal data submission. Some states have to enter that information on their own into this separate federal data collection system. But because we use the Data Hub, we're able to just take that information from there and kind of do the back end calculations to get it in the format needed for federal submission so that you all don't have to interact with that federal system. We also collect information in the Data Hub to support statewide evaluation efforts, which is, a requirement under the ESSA legislation. All states must conduct a statewide evaluation. And so the data elements that we collect there support that process, help us answer our evaluation questions on a yearly basis, and help us, make recommendations for how we move forward with the 21st Century Program. And then also the goal is to support local continuous improvement efforts. So there are a series of reports that are available in the Data Hub that can help you understand, what's happening in your program. One that I'm thinking about in particular is the attendance reports. So the participation data that you enter into the system that generates a live dynamic report for you to see what your attendance is doing from month to month. So you can figure out, am I serving the students that I need to? that type of thing. So some more formative, interactive data elements that allow you to see where your program's at. So this allows us to assess the impact of the program. So that's like the major question, right? Of what is the effect of the 21st century program on the students and families that we're serving? So we collect that data in a way that allows us to address some of those questions. It allows us to monitor and refine our program, so kind of connected to that continuous improvement. What do we see in the data that maybe sparks us to take action to kind of refine what we're doing? And all of that in an effort to support learning about our programs. So those are some of the ways that the Data Hub allows us to interact with the information that we're putting into it. So now I do want to give you a quick demo of the Data Hub just to see where we submit this information, what type of data are required, and what the key features of the system are. At this time, I'll also show you, for those of you that have interacted with the system before, some of the changes that are coming in the system based on new federal requirements. So just give me one moment while I put the Data Hub in front of us. Joyce, Shonda, can somebody confirm that you can see the Data Hub login page there?
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. I never know when I transition from applications. Okay, so this is the Data Hub login page, and this is actually a user testing site. So it's not the formal site that you see, but this allows me to show you some of the changes that we're making that haven't been pushed to the final site yet. So let me just log in really quickly. So for those of you that are new, when you log in as a project director or a site coordinator, on the main page, you will see all of the grants that you are associated with. It could be one grant, it could be multiple. Within each grant, you have a number of different options. I'm going to focus on data submission at this point and show you what's available there. But just really quickly, across the top of your screen, you'll see a number of different options in the ribbon. So reporting features that are available to you, some administration features that will be available to you, things like delegating access to other users, changing contact information, things of that nature. Resources is where you can go and take a look at some of the things that are available to support data entry efforts, one of which is the Data User Manual, Data Hub User Manual, and any of the past recorded webinars. Just to note that we are in the process of updating the user manual to reflect some of the changes that we're making to the system, so that a new version of that will be available fairly soon. If you do need help, you have the option to click on the Need Help section here, and that will drive you to a page where you can access our help desk email address, and then also contact information for Joyce and then myself as well. But let me move back to our main page here, and I just want to show you the layout of this. Surveys really quickly will be our teacher surveys that we'll administer in the spring. So we're not going to focus on that at the moment. But if I go into data submission, this is my grantee here. And in data submission, I might have one or I might have multiple sites that are part of this particular grantee. It just depends on how you wrote your grant application. So for each of your sites or centers, they will be listed here. We've got contact information available here for our grants. If I were to click on the center name, that would give me contact information for the center. I can always go in and update this information also in the administration tab. So for each center, there are a variety of pieces of information that we ask you to report on. The first being operations. This is going to be the first thing that you want to submit when we open the system up here in a couple of weeks. General operations basically drives a lot of the other areas of the data hub. So if I go in here and say, no, I didn't have summer operations, and yes, I do have school year operations, that will impact what type of information you have to report in other areas of the data hub. So this is one area that I do want to note that we've made some changes to because of changes to federal reporting. For those of you that have been in the system in the past, you may remember that we had to report information in 3 different terms: summer operations, fall operations, and then spring operations. Beginning this year, the feds have decided to transition back to summer and school year reporting instead of the 3 terms. So that's a change that you will also see when you log in the next time, that it just reflects summer operations and school year operations now. And this is just a lot of logistical information of when you offer a program in those 2 terms. And then also our next page asks us a little bit more about what our program goals and objectives are. So based on that, I move on to staffing, which will also be reflective of the general operations. And this is important to note when you log in for the first time this season or this year. If you haven't completed your information in general operations, it will ask you to make sure that you do that before you move on and try to enter additional information. So that's why I got that error message here. If I go down to this other center where I know I've completed my operations, it just asked me to report my staffing in the 2 terms. Again, this is changed so that it's just summer and it's school year. The same will be true for activities if I move over there. We will report activities for summer and then also for school year. One thing that's important to know about activities, I have a form that I need to fill out for each of these. And you'll see also that the term drop down is updated so that it's reflective of summer and school year instead of summer, fall, and spring. And there's just a variety of information that we ask you to fill out about each activity that you offer in the summer and the school year. You also have the option to select whether it's an activity that's offered to students or adult family members. And depending on my selections here, some of these questions will change. So just keep that in mind. And in our main activity page, it will summarize, okay, I have a STEM program activity, and it's a student level activity. Again, I'm just giving you a very brief overview. We'll be offering some more in-depth training on this that will go into the specifics of each of these sections, but I'm just trying to make everyone aware of the types of information that we'll be collecting and some of the changes that we're making. Okay. Let's see here, feeder schools. This is just basically information about, for the students who attend your program, where do they also attend their school day? So it's very simple data entry point. I believe we're thinking about actually removing this when we open this up in a couple of weeks, just because we're able to glean that information from your participant list. So we don't think we need this anymore. Just an FYI. Partners information. So this is where a lot of the information that Barney was talking about would go. So in here, you would add your partner information. It generates a list of all the partners that you're working with. And it asks you to input some information about each of those partners. So how are they contributing to the program? Are they a vendor or contractor? What type of partner are they? Just very basic information about your partners. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about youth and adult participation. So youth participation, those are our students that we're serving in our program. Adult participants are our adult family members that we're serving through our program. Let's focus really quickly on the youth first. And just a little bit about how this page operates. So first and foremost, we need to generate a roster of students that have attended or will attend our program in the summer and or the school year. So this is your kind of overall pool of students that attend your program at any point during the year, summer and school year. This is what you'll need to complete before you can move on to actual attendance reporting. So for those of you who have had a program in the past, when we open the system up in a couple of weeks, you will see that your student rosters from last year have carried forward, and then you just need to clean up that student roster by adding students that are not there, deleting students that will no longer attend your program, and then making sure that all of the information for your students is complete. There's a series of pieces of information that we ask you to fill out about each student, what district and school they attend during the regular school day. This is where we can draw that feeder school information. Their student state identification number. So this is not their PowerSchool number, but it's their 10-digit state identification number, which should be available in PowerSchool, but it's not their PowerSchool number. Some basic demographics about the student, and then also, at enrollment, what level of math and reading supports do we think they will be participating in over the course of the year? And there's some information here on what those 3 levels are classified as. It's important to note here that this does not need to be specifically tied to any piece of outcome data that you receive from the school. This is kind of more subjective in terms of I know certain things about the student. I anticipate that they will participate in these types of supports over the course of the program year. Once I complete my roster, I can move on to reporting attendance. And just to show you really quickly, we've built in some safety measures that if I don't have my roster complete, I won't be able to move on to reporting attendance. So if I have incomplete information here or blank records, I'll need to take care of those first before I can go on and report attendance. So for example, if I have too many blank records here, I can just go ahead and delete them. And that will allow me to report my attendance. Information is collected each month. So my recommendation is that you start with the earliest month and then move on to the next month reporting. Even if that means I say that I don't have programming in a particular month. So let's say I didn't have programming over the summer. I'm going to go in and just tell the system that I didn't have programming in those months. Let's say September is my first year of monthly reporting. And this will allow me to add students to that month that are completed in my student roster. Only got 1 completed, so that's the only one that shows up here. And then there's just a variety of information that we ask you to report on each month for each student. What level of supports did they actually participate in? What types of activities did they participate in the majority of their time? And then for each day in the month, were they present, which is a 1, absent, or was this day not applicable? And the not applicable days can be used in several ways. Maybe you didn't start programming until September 8th, for example. And so for all of your students, September 1st through 7th would be not applicable. And then the same is also true for students who maybe enroll a little bit later or maybe drop out of the program at certain points. We don't want to say those students are absent. We just want to say those days are not applicable to that student because they hadn't yet enrolled or they had dropped out by that point in the program. And so once you complete that information, you can kind of go back to your monthly completion status, and you'll see that my 1 student shows up here for September, but I haven't yet completed all of the information for that student. So that's just a good way to see where you're at in the process. So that's kind of the monthly attendance reporting for students. Now if I go back and take a look at this same feature for adult family member participation in our program, it will take me to an enrollment page for my adult family members, and then it will allow me to report monthly attendance. So adult attendance is a little bit different.
Samantha,
yes.
may I chime in before you go to adult attendance? There's a question someone asked in the chat room. So is there a code for students who participated virtually due to being quarantined?
Yeah, we don't have a code for that specifically. We try to capture the type of program that you're offering, whether it's virtual, in person, or hybrid, both in the general operations section and in the activities section. So we don't have a specific flag within attendance reporting for each student. But you'll see within activities and general operation, we'll collect that information there. And then that's kind of how we're capturing the differences in the types of programming.
And it looks like you have a second question. Can you see the chat, or you want me to read it?
I need to change my view really quickly.
That's okay, I'll read it. It says,
here.
is the data hub, in the data hub, would we have to manually add each student?
So that's a good question. There are options for manual entry directly within this interface. So I can kind of show you that here. We have to tell the system how many records we want. And then I can go and add my adult family member. I can do this directly here in the interface. Or I can use a variety of Excel templates that are available both for enrollment and for each month of attendance reporting. So for example, if I'm needing to add like 50 students at a time, probably the Excel spreadsheet template is the route to go, because for a lot of the information that is the same for each student, you can copy and paste that and save you some time. So you have the ability to download and upload those templates within enrollment and also within each month of attendance reporting. I do really quickly want to show you the type of information that we are collecting for adult family members. There are a couple of fields that are optional here, middle name and suffix. In your enrollment for adult family members, you do have the option to connect them to specific students that you've already enrolled. If you have that information, you don't have to, but that's one way to connect them. So now that my adult family member is complete here, I can move on to attendance reporting. And so what is different from the adult family member attendance reporting from the student participation is that we are not asking for as much detail for our adult family members. So for students, we were saying each day of the month, did they participate this day, yes or no? For our adult family members, we just want to know within the month of, this is June, for example, Did this adult family member participate in any of these types of activities? Yes or no. So it's much less complex. Through this too, instead of clicking the drop down. So we've got Jane Doe complete here. You can see I'm 100% complete for June. So that's kind of the variety of information that we are requesting for adult family members. Joyce, do we have any other questions in the chat box? I'm going to hop us back to our PowerPoint presentation and give us a few more pointers on the Data Hub.
I don't see any other questions, but I just want to reiterate to the project directors, and Samantha mentioned it, that there will be some training that will occur. So you will be able to go in depth with any questions, and you will be hands-on in the Data Hub.
Yeah. Thanks, Joyce. Okay, so those important dates. We had planned to open the Data Hub after Labor Day, but due to some very recent changes and federal reporting requirements around activities, we had to make some changes to the Data Hub as well. And so we are hoping those are in place. I should be able to start testing early next week and hopefully get that out by September 30th. So our goal is to open the system to you all by September 30th. And then for those of you who are brand new, you'll get your initial invitation to the system at that time as well. Data Hub user trainings. I haven't yet discussed this with the department team, but it would likely be early to mid, I'm sure that should say early to mid October, not September. So we'll get that on the book as soon as possible and let you know when that will happen. There'll likely be a couple of options for you to attend those, and of course those will be recorded as well. Just a couple of notes about data submission time deadlines. As soon as we get the system open, we would encourage you to complete the following sections as soon as possible. General operations, that's the first thing you're going to have to complete before you can move on to other areas. And then staffing, activities, feeder schools, and partners. Those are all things that, for the most part, are pretty static across the program year. You might already know what types of activities you're going to offer throughout the course of the program year. You can always go back in and update them or add more if you wish. And then youth and adult family member participation should be completed on a monthly basis to the extent possible. We're still waiting to understand the firm deadlines for federal reporting purposes. But it's just best practice to try to get in there on a monthly basis and get that information up to date. I know we'll have a little catch up to do because of the delay in opening the system and the changes that we had to make. But we'll try to support you through that process. Okay, where you can find help, I alluded to this a little bit earlier, but on the resources page in the top ribbon of the Data Hub, you can find the user manual, which we are currently updating to reflect these changes. Recorded webinars and trainings. Of course, the trainings that we offer in the next couple of weeks will be posted there once available as well. And then you also have our help desk as well that you can reach out to. All right. A quick note about reporting adult family members. Just wanted to note that, it is a part of the SLA legislation that we do provide services to the families of the students that are being served by our community learning centers. So just want to keep that in mind as you move through the course of the school year, thinking about how you can provide services to your adult family members of those students. And that's where we report in the Data Hub the adult family member information. So again, some of the things that you could be offering to your families, things like GED prep, ESL, job skills, things of that nature, celebrations, including family nights, and then other types of activities. And in the past year or so, we've been advising folks to use that option to describe adult family members who participate in things that are maybe not reflective of this list, but maybe are more reflective of the types of needs that you're trying to meet as a result of COVID-19. So whether it's like access to food or pointing families to other resources such as financial support, shelters, things of that nature, if you kind of being that connector to resources, that's a good way to indicate that there as well. Again, we don't really know what the rest of the school year is going to look like, so we want to keep this in mind as we progress throughout the school year. Right, Joyce, any other questions on the Data Hub? I'm going to move us along to program supports that are available.
Yes, there is another question. The question is, do we need to have both PowerSchool and Data Hub for attendance or just Data Hub?
So for our purposes for statewide evaluation and federal reporting, we use only the information that is in the Data Hub. I don't have access to PowerSchool, directly. On the back end, we do make a request to the state for other pieces of PowerSchool data, such as student outcomes and other demographics that allow us to do some other analyses. But that's largely driven by our participant list that you all enter into the Data Hub. So I don't know if there are other reasons that you would need to fill out information in PowerSchool. I know we've gone through and asked you to check the flag in PowerSchool, whether or not they're a 21st century student. That allows us to kind of streamline our request to the state for other data sources. But outside of that, unless there's something else, Joyce, that you would highlight there, most of what we do comes directly from the Data Hub.
Right, yeah, just the Data Hub.
Perfect. All right, so program supports. Over the last year or so, we have been trying to ramp up some supports and resources that are available to you to, support you in your program efforts. So one of the things that we do want to highlight is our support site, which includes resources related to program guidance. And I'm actually, let's see here, I want to get out of PowerPoint and focus on our support site. And let's see if I can figure out how to put this information in the chat box. All right, here we go. I think it's coming your way. Link in the chat box. So this hosts a variety of information, some of that related to guidance from the state, program guidance, any guidance related to COVID-19. It allows us to view supports available related to data and reporting. You can access the Data Hub link here. You can access prior statewide evaluation reports. For those of you engaging in any continuous quality improvement efforts, those resources would be available here. One thing that we think is going to be really interesting to you all is professional development opportunities or the connection with others. So here we have pages related to things like facilitating distance learning, lesson plans and activities, just various resources that you can access here to support that process. Here. So there's a variety of resources that you can access here. One thing that I do want to note, based on our community forums that we hosted over the last year, System-Wide Solutions, our partner, produced a series of videos aligned to experiential learning and team building. So those are available here for you to view at your convenience. And then there's some additional videos that really focus on like 60-second strategies of effective classroom practices that we think are really engaging. So tons of resources for you here. Connecting with others is also a good opportunity. So we do have a Slack page that is available. We would encourage you to participate in there.
Good, good.
Joyce, I think you're unmuted. I think that's maybe Joyce.
No, it's not me, but can everyone please mute yourselves? Okay, thank you.
You. So our Slack page also provides a variety of resources. I'm going to try to, I think I have to hop out of here to get the link. Let me get that for you. I'm going to type that into the chat box as well. And so what our Slack page looks like, we have these different channels on the Slack page. And a lot of these we addressed in some of our community forums, and we've provided a lot of resources here for things related to these topics. So if you haven't joined the Slack page yet, we would encourage you to do that. It's a good forum for accessing these resources or having direct contact with your colleagues and peers. And then finally, we also have a Google spreadsheet that we've created. We don't have a lot of entries in it right now because it's based on users going in and inputting information that they have received, used so far. But we wanted to create a spreadsheet for you all to go in and view and add things to that allow you to communicate things that have worked for you. Maybe it's a specific partner that you're working with that focuses on a content area. So just, trying to highlight some of the success stories that you've had with partners or vendors or things of that nature. So let me get to that really quickly. We do have one entry in here, STEM in Space, South Carolina State Museum. This was entered last year, so I don't know how up to date that is. But again, if you have ideas of things that could go in here that would be useful to your colleagues and peers, I would highly encourage you to do that. And go ahead and post that in the chat box as well. Okay, I think that's all I have, Joyce. Are there any other questions or things that you hope me to cover in our time?
Oh, hold on. I'm not seeing any other questions. And you did a good overview. Let me turn my camera on. Okay. Yeah, I'm not seeing any other questions, but if you all have questions for Samantha, we have a few minutes that you can ask her. You can unmute yourselves and ask her questions or type it in the chat box.
Absolutely. I'm happy to answer any questions. Again,
Samantha,
yes.
Samantha, this is Barney. I have one quick
Hi,
question. Is there any way, and I've asked this question a year or so ago, has there been any way that we can capture the data that has been submitted in AIR year over year so that when we're talking to potential partners and potential funders that we could talk about the successes that we've had year over year? Is there any way to capture that data?
Yeah, so I think it depends on the type of data that you're taking a look at. We do have the ability to generate reports, and I'm thinking specifically of our attendance reports as an example of selecting a specific year that we want to take a look at. So you can filter that report on the year and generate reports in that fashion. So you can kind of compare the 2 years or 3 years that you're interested in exploring.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
There is another question here, Samantha. Says, for some reason, the link would not allow me to validate the URL. Would you be able to have it emailed? So I'm not sure which link.
Yeah.
Tracy,
Yeah.
which link are you speaking of? You can unmute yourself.
Yes. Oh, yes, ma'am. So I clicked on the docs for Google the Google link, and it just keeps telling me that the validating URL won't let me access the link in there.
Okay. Yeah, I can certainly email that out. I took it directly from the webpage, and maybe I shouldn't have done that. So we'll see. I'll get the right one to you all.
Thank you. Any other questions for Samantha? Okay. Yes, someone has said same here with the URL. So we will just make sure that we email it to all of the participants.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I think you can also access the doc from here, from the support site. Yeah, so I'll find the right link for you. You can navigate to it somehow on the support site, but I'll get you the direct link for that.
All right, thank you. All right, last call for questions. All right, so if you don't have any other questions, Shonda, I'm going to turn this over to you if you want to just talk about briefly the evaluation piece. Thank you, Samantha, so much.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you everyone. Nice to hear your voices, and hopefully eventually we'll all be back together soon in person at some point. But I hope you have a good program year, and I'll see you on the Data Hub trainings.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Actually, Joyce, Shonda had to step out.
Okay.
My desk.
Okay. All right. Then when we email, because I'm not sure if everybody's had a chance to complete the evaluation, but that can be a part of the email that we'll send out along with the links that Samantha just mentioned. Okay. All right. Does anyone else have any other questions? I know it's a lot of information. This session has been recorded, so as soon as we can download the recording, we'll send that out as well. And if you don't have any other questions, gosh, thank you all so much for giving us some of your time today. And we are just hoping that, we'll all have a great school year this year. And we look forward to, of course, we're always here and available to help you in any way that we can. So with that being said, we're going to bid you farewell and hope you have a great weekend. Jamal, do you have any parting words for the group? Well,
Just want to say good luck to everybody. Have a great year. Do what you can for the kids. They need our help right now. They need this outlet called 21st Century. So just be creative, and one parting gift, listen to your kids. They're going to tell you what they like and what they don't like. So value your kids' opinion. You guys have a great weekend.
all right. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Goodbye.